Reading for me is one of the great forms of escapism. Summer months for me is when I read holidays, because I find when I get into a book, I can't put it down, and I will happily be sat there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, wrapped up in what I'm reading. I'd like to talk to you about The Northern Lights, which is the first of the Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. I first read this as a teenager. It's a wonderful set of books. It tells the story of Lyra Balakwa, a young teenager living in an Oxford quite similar but not exactly the same as our Oxford, and follows her adventures through time and through space. There's so many layers to these books. On a very grand scale, it tells a story of a battle in the heavens between good and evil. At its heart, there is between authority and between freedom. And it follows the story of these characters as they weave through this very large conflict, really, with all these incredible personal relationships and personal stories. It also has really interesting takes on philosophy and religion, and the idea of freedom of choice and ordained prophecy, if you like. There's lots of physics. There's a multiverse of universes interweaved together, linking together ideas of consciousness and really philosophical concepts with very physics-based concepts of things like dark matter. It encompasses our world, but also lots of very different worlds. There's fantasy. You meet characters as well as humans. You meet armoured polar bears who can talk and think. You meet witches. You meet angels. There are so many different, almost fantasy-like characters in here as well. There's the science fiction element of the crossover with science. And within all these grand themes, at its heart, really, it's a coming-of-age story. It's about a young teenager becoming more an adult, learning about the world, learning about themselves, falling in love, learning about loss, grief, human emotions. One of the unique features of the main characters as you first meet them in the book is this concept of their demon, which is an animal that follows them around and stays very close to them. Now for Lyra, our main character, as a child, their demon's able to change shape and take different forms depending on what the character's feeling, what the demon is feeling. Really, it's an embodiment of the soul, and the relationships between demon and human, really, between the soul and the body and the mind, drive the storyline forward, and how those relationships evolve. And for Lyra, with her demon Pantalaimon, how that relationship changes as she grows up and becomes a teenager, becomes more of an adult. And I think that's a really wonderful angle on what it means to grow up. What would my demon be? I'd like to think it would be some sort of an owl. And this isn't a relationship to Hedwig and a possible passing resemblance to another teenage wizard. I'm often quite active late at night, thinking of my musical performances. I'm used to performing at night there, seeing in the dark in a pit, from doing a school show. I'd like to think that I've managed to accrue a fair amount of wisdom over the last 13 years or so of teaching and life, maybe in general, perhaps. So I think that's where I'd like to imagine it would be. It's a wonderful story. I'd highly recommend it to anyone of school age who's interested in reading and interested in fantasy and science fiction, in magic, in just down-to-earth fantastic storytelling. It's a wonderful book.